For the survivor who chooses to testify, it is clear. His duty is to bear witness for the dead and for the living. He has no right to deprive future generations of a past that belongs to our collective memory. To forget would be not only dangerous, but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. In Night, Romanian-American author and Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel bore witness to his experiences at the hands of Nazi Germany, from a ghetto in Romania all the way through his experiences in Auschwitz and Buchenwald, two Nazi concentration camps. The term Holocaust refers to the systematic persecution and murder of millions of European Jews and other targeted groups by the Nazis during World War II. Before continuing with our video on the Holocaust, it's important to acknowledge that this lesson may bring up strong emotions due to the severity of the topic. Today's lesson will depict one of the darkest moments in human history, and we want to remind you that it's okay to take breaks and step away if you need to. Additionally, it's perfectly fine to reach out to a loved one or someone you trust to discuss your feelings after the lesson. Please remember that it's natural to feel overwhelmed and emotional during this difficult topic, and we encourage you to take care of yourself throughout the lesson. Our hope, humanity's hope, is that when you have finished this lesson, you can take what you have learned and help keep the memories of those lost in the Holocaust alive for future generations. Our guiding questions for today's lesson are: what laws and events led to the Holocaust? What was the final solution? What were some of the ways people resisted Nazi atrocities? We should also start thinking about our big picture question. Does an individual have a responsibility to intervene when they witness injustice? In September 1935, after firmly grasping power, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis passed the Nuremberg Laws. These laws stripped German Jews of citizenship and the rights associated with citizenship, and legalized discrimination against Jewish people throughout areas controlled by Germany. This legalized discrimination led to Jewish Germans losing their jobs, being shunned by others, and even imprisoned. Eventually, this escalated into state-sponsored terrorism against German Jews. On November 9th and 10th, 1938, members of Nazi paramilitary groups, a Nazi organization for children known as the Hitler Youth, and other German citizens began systematically destroying Jewish homes, businesses, and religious buildings. This was known as Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, in reference to the destroyed windows throughout Nazi Germany, Austria, and the Sudetenland. Kristallnacht resulted in the death of 100 Jewish people and 30,000 more being sent to concentration camps. Concentration camps are facilities where large groups of people, especially political prisoners and targeted groups, are housed in horrifically inadequate or oppressive conditions. Tens of thousands of Jews living in areas controlled by the Nazis tried to flee and emigrate to places like the United States, Great Britain, and France. While a few thousand were fortunate enough to make it out, these countries eventually refused to allow more Jewish refugees to immigrate. As it became harder for German Jews to flee to safety, the Nazis began forcibly removing them from their homes, taking their possessions, and moving all of them into ghettos. These ghettos were segregated parts of cities guarded by armed soldiers where Jewish citizens could not leave. Time to check in. What laws and events led to the Holocaust? Nazi expansion into Eastern Europe and the beginning of World War II set in motion a genocide that is estimated to have killed 13 million people, including 6 million Jews. Genocide means the state-sponsored systematic killing of people from a specific nation or ethnic group. The so-called final solution on the Jewish question was decided at a 1942 conference in the Berlin suburb of Wannsee. At this conference, officials from various parts of the Nazi regime devised an evil plan designed to identify, imprison, and eventually kill all Jews living in Europe. Throughout the areas they occupied, Nazis gathered up Jewish people and other so-called undesirables and transported them to a series of concentration camps throughout Germany and Eastern Europe. These groups included individuals who held communist or socialist beliefs, members of the Roma community, Polish people, Russians, gay men and women, people with mental health conditions, and disabled individuals. It is important to recognize that there were two types of concentration camps: forced labor camps and death camps. Older citizens, young children, and those who were viewed as unable to work were sent immediately to death camps. Those who were perceived as fit to work were separated out and sent to forced labor camps, where they were enslaved to build the supplies necessary to fuel the Nazi war machine. Chronically underfed, these workers were also beaten and killed by sadistic guards who thought they weren't working hard enough. Eventually, those who became too weak or ill to work were sent to death camps. These camps continued operating until Allied troops approached and those guarding the camps fled. Time to check in again. What was the final solution? While these events were horrific and inhumane, it is important to remember that ordinary people fought to resist the Nazi death machine. In places like Warsaw and Krakow in Poland, and Vilnius, Lithuania, Jews living in ghettos took part in armed uprisings against the Nazis. Armed with whatever weapons they could get their hands on, residents of these ghettos valiantly fought armed Nazi soldiers. At camps like Treblinka in 1943 and Auschwitz in 1944, prisoners valiantly attempted revolts to free themselves. Others resisted by keeping their culture alive, passing down Jewish traditions while imprisoned in ghettos and concentration camps. Simple acts like praying together, providing children with religious instruction, or keeping the Sabbath were ways to hold on to one's Jewish faith, to keep alive that which the Nazis were trying to extinguish. Some documented their experiences so the world would know. Books like Wiesel's Night depicted the horrors and dehumanization experienced in concentration camps. Diary of a Young Girl, written by Anne Frank, detailed her experiences and feelings as she hid from the Nazis in Amsterdam. But for countless others, they participated in the ultimate act of resistance: survival. Surviving, living, starting families. Those simple acts meant that no matter how horrific or inhumane the Nazis were, they were ultimately unsuccessful in their attempts to exterminate entire groups of people. Survival meant the opportunity to bear witness to history, the ability to create a collective memory in order to try to prevent this from happening again. After the camps were liberated in 1945, it became essential to remember and honor those who were unable to escape. There are many ways that people all over the world have worked to honor the victims and push us to remember, including museums and monuments. You can check out more of those places in detail in your PDF. Time for one last check-in. What were some of the ways people resisted Nazi atrocities? I know that this has been a difficult lesson. I'm proud of you for making it through, though. You are the latest in a long line of people who will bear witness and say, never again. While it is important to understand and acknowledge Nazi atrocities, we should remember and celebrate Jewish resistance and survival in the face of such brutality. And as we remember these awful events and work to ensure that they never happen again, we carry on that resistance, because history is everywhere.